Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to Comic Book Nostalgia. I'm CB Nostalgia, and we have a major update about Sony's Spider-Man Universe. Well, as many of you know, Spider-Man No Way Home is a massive hit. It's just crossed 800 million domestically and is closing in on 2 billion worldwide. And this hype train is now headed towards Morbius. Now, recently, the Morbius director did an AMA with Cinema Blend, and although he talked a lot about the vampire, he actually gave us some major details and indicators about the future of the Sony Spider-Man universe and exactly what their plans are. It was pretty darn revealing, and I thought we should take a couple minutes to break down some very specific questions. So let's dive into the Cinema Blend AMA and talk about the future of the Spider-Man universe. But before we swing into that, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button and ring the bell for all the updates. Also, the big giveaway. We're going to give away this Oculus Quest 2 at 50,000 subscribers. All you need to do to get in our giveaway is be a subscriber and leave us a comment. Also, while you're at it, make sure you check out that free week of Skillshare down below. It's a pretty cool way for you to develop your superhero skills for that never-ending war on crime, all while not diving too deep into your pockets. Plus, it really does help the channel, so we really appreciate it. Now, before we dive into this video, I just wanted to warn everybody, there will be Morbius spoilers ahead. If you haven't seen the movie and you don't want any of that broken for you, make sure you click away and then come back after you saw the movie in a couple of days. Well, like I was saying, recently, Cinema Blend has done their bit for promoting Morbius, and they actually hosted an AMA, which is an Ask Me Anything, with the director of the film, Daniel Espinosa. Now, he did talk a lot of Morbius, especially about his powers and the production, so I encourage you to check it out. But for me, there was some major reveals about how Sony is going to handle all of these Spider-Man characters, and may have given us some key indicators on what's going on. Now, the interesting thing about this AMA though, and AMAs can be pretty revealing, but not very often does the actual production company retweet stuff that might be considered a major spoiler. Many of these big reveals were actually retweeted by Sony, meaning this is a half promotion for everything Sony has going on, and probably should be looked at through that lens. Let's dive into a couple of these questions and we'll take them on one at a time. So let's start with the Vulture. Now, during the AMA, they asked him very specifically about the Vulture and how he fit into this movie. There were two questions. The first one was, let's shift to Michael Keaton, who we saw in your Morbius trailers. Is he playing the same Adrian Toomes Vulture from Spider-Man Homecoming? And Espinosa's answer was yes, confirming this is the same guy from the MCU. Now, the second part of this is interesting, because he asked, how did he get to Venom and Morbius's universe? And he said, at the end of Venom Let There Be Carnage and Spider-Man No Way Home, and in No Way Home itself, it is clearly established that it is possible for characters to transfer from one multiverse to another. The events of No Way Home had the effect of transferring Venom and Vulture, and maybe others, back and forth between the MCU and the Venom universe. Now, I do have a couple of questions about this. Obviously, Venom went back for a reason because that's where he belonged, but I really am wondering why the Vulture would have been sent to a different universe than he belongs in. It's unclear why he would be singled out in this matter, and hopefully they'll tell us within the story, but it might be something they just ignore and move on and try not to ask too many questions. But Cinema Blend did follow up and asked him how did Adrian Toomes get the Vulture suit at the end of Morbius, seeming to confirm the post-credit scene. The response from Espinosa was pretty interesting and begs some other questions. If you look closely, you'll see it's not quite the same suit as Homecoming. He is a resourceful guy. Well, since we know the Chitauri invasion hasn't taken place in other universes, this is a pretty big question here, and we'll get to it a little bit later, but I think there's actually an obvious answer to this question, but revealing that would answer the big question about Spider-Man, which we're going to get to in a few seconds. Now, one of the other questions kind of piggybacks on this one, because Cinema Blend posed the question, what universe does Morbius take place in? And Espinosa's answer once again helped establish this world. He said, Morbius lives in the same universe as Venom. This is the universe we saw Venom exit at the end of Venom Let There Be Carnage and return to at the end of Spider-Man No Way Home. So it appears Sony is working very hard to establish these villains, and they do absolutely plan to have them exist in the same world. This would make a lot of sense, and does pretty much feel like what Marvel did with the Avengers, although they were heroes, before they teamed them all up. And I think this is why Cinema Blend had what was the last question in the interview. They asked Espinosa, is Vulture and Morbius setting up for a Sinister 6 movie? His reply was super interesting. He said, "Well, he is recruiting teammates, and he has enticed one already, so it sure looks like a start." Now, since we've established that the Vulture is also in the same universe as Morbius, this means we have a great count going on. Venom, Morbius, and Vulture make up half the team. Now, we're going to talk in a second about the big Spider-Man question, and that possibly could answer who some of the other villains will be, but we do know Sony has multiple projects in the works, including Kraven the Hunter, so that could very easily be them establishing a group of villains in solo movies before a team-up. This is exactly how Marvel Studios did it for the Avengers, and might be the exact path Sony is taking. Although Morbius is getting panned by critics, it does look like fans are going to show up for the first weekend based on some of the estimates. Some of the predictions are putting the movie at $50 million, which is not bad for a movie that's been slapped around the way Morbius has, and I'm sure would be a success to Sony Studios. Now, this is the big one, Spider-Man. During the AMA, Cinema Blend did ask him, is there a Spider-Man in Venom's universe? And his answer was short and concise. Of course. Now, you would think that would be the big news, but it's not, because then they asked him which Spider-Man exists in Venom's universe, and he said, "It is my understanding that audiences will discover the answer soon." Now, this really is the big reveal here. I feel pretty strongly this will actually indeed be Andrew Garfield. And that means several villains like Rhino already have a presence in the universe and could be part of this Sinister Six project we were just talking about. Now, Andrew Garfield got one heck of a positive response during his return in No Way Home, and the dude clearly likes playing the role. So I could totally see him returning to his amazing universe, and that being the space Sony decides to tell their stories. Now, thinking back to the Vulture a couple of minutes ago, this may answer one of those questions. We all remember those wings in that post-credit scene in Oscorp, along with Doc Ock's tentacles. So that could put many of those pieces in place that we could be wondering about. Now, I will say though, there is a possibility they go with a new actor altogether. This is something Sony could easily do. That would make me wonder if they go in a different direction and use Miles Morales in this universe. The Spider-Verse movie was great, and the sequel has tons of fan anticipation, so I could see Sony trying to manifest this possibility, but quite honestly, on the heels of No Way Home, with that positive return of Andrew Garfield, and almost $2 billion at the box office, I think that's the direction Sony will ultimately choose. Now, obviously, Sony has massive plans for Spider-Man, and they really do seem to have a real game board in place here for building a cohesive Spider-Man universe, hopefully following the example that Marvel Studios has done so far with their world. With the number of pieces they have on the board, and the multiverse working to their advantage, along with characters like Madam Web that easily transition the multiverse, you can see how Sony might have maximum flexibility to tell their stories, introduce new characters, and piggyback on other successes, allowing them to tell a lot more interesting stories. But we'll have to wait and see. So, what do you guys think? Did you find any of the information from the Cinema Blend AMA super revealing for the Spider-Man universe? And who do you think will be the new Spider-Man for Sony? I'm sticking with Andrew Garfield. It seems like a no-brainer. Sound off in the comments below. If you like this video, make sure you hit like, click subscribe, and if you don't ring that bell, you ain't getting any updates. Peace.